Welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Keep It Big, Tune-Ups and Other Post-Discharge Recommendations in LSVT BIG. I thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. My name is Heather Cianci and I am your moderator for today as well as one of your presenters. I'll be joined later on today by my colleague, Dr. Beth Marcoux. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge our funding support, which has helped to make LSVT Global possible and what it is today. We thank the National Institutes of Health, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Parkinson's Alliance, and the Davis Phinney Foundation. A little bit about our plan for today's webinar. We'll go over some of the logistics early on. We'll do a brief introduction of both myself and Dr. Marcoux, and then we'll spend the majority of our time learning about post-discharge recommendations following LSVT BIG, including continued daily homework practice, tune-up sessions, and BIG for Life maintenance groups. I'd like to acknowledge that we may have professional therapists on this webinar, as well as individuals with Parkinson's disease and others. So please know that this webinar is intended for everyone, and we'll try to make it as applicable to everyone who is attending. So just briefly, let me tell you about myself. Like I said, my name is Heather Cianci, and I'm a physical therapist at the Dan Aaron Parkinson's Rehab Center at Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia, PA. I, along with Dr. Beth Marcoux, started as an LSVT faculty member back in 2011, and we have traveled the world training countless physical and occupational therapy professionals in this wonderful technique of LSVT BIG. I work primarily in outpatients with individuals with Parkinson's and other movement disorders. Dr. Beth Marcoux comes to us from New Hampshire. She is a physical therapist in private practice, and she has been a faculty member on numerous physical therapy faculties throughout the U.S. Lastly, at the University of Rhode Island, where she was a professor and chair of physical therapy for 9 years. So we will be the people who will be talking to you today and answering your questions. A few disclosures. I'd like to let you know that all of the LSVT BIG and LSVT Loud faculty have both financial and non-financial relationships with the organization LSVT Global. Our non-financial relationships do include a preference for both LSVT BIG and LSVT Loud as a treatment technique. Our financial relationships include that both myself and Dr. Marcoux are consultants for LSVT Global, and that all of the LSVT faculty members do receive consulting fees, lecture honorarium, and travel reimbursement from LSVT Global. Now, if we do have therapists with us today for this webinar will be offered for 0.1 CEUs for PT and OT professionals. It's required that you do attend the full hour. Remember, though, that the LSVT Global webinars for this year have not been registered for state-approved CEUs. So if you would like to self-report your activity, please email us at webinars@lsvtglobal.com, and you can request a certificate after the completion of this today, which will include your name, date of the webinar, and then length of the webinar. And remember that the licensing requirements for CEUs do differ by state, so please be sure to check with your state licensing board to determine if your state will accept a non-state registered CEU activity. We have some learning outcomes that we hope that you'll be able to take away from this, and after finishing this webinar, we hope that all participants will be able to list some of the barriers to exercise and some ways to overcome them, be able to describe why continuing with LSVT BIG home program is so important for being able to maintain function, be able to describe what a BIG for Life class is and how to find one, and then lastly, how to describe how to appropriately use therapy. So that's both physical and occupational therapy. So let's start with some recent research. The Back to Basics, Regular Exercise Matters in Parkinson's Disease. This was a registry study that was done by formerly the National Parkinson Foundation, which is now just the Parkinson Foundation. And they took a look at a lot of subjects. You can see here close to 5,000 subjects, and did a baseline analysis on people, asking them about their activities. Now, they met with a little over 2,000 of those subjects then for a second visit, so that they could kind of watch these people over an amount of time and see what they could find out from them. And what they found was in those individuals who were regular exercisers, they found that not only did they have a better quality of life, but they also had better mobility, physical function. They had less progression of the disease, which is a very, very important thing. There was reduced caregiver burden and less cognitive decline 1 year later. So a lot of really positive associations with people who regularly continued with their exercise. Now, when they looked at that further, they looked at the amount of exercise that people were performing. So talking about the dose of exercise. They found that people who did very low levels of exercise, so only did about 1 to 150 minutes per week, really their outcome was almost like people who did no exercise. So what that research is showing us is that we need to up the ante. We need to be exercising more regularly than we normally do, and we need to be exercising at a higher intensity level if we really want to get those wonderful quality of life and functional improvements. Now, there's many reasons why people have difficulty with exercising, not only just from a functional standpoint, but also different behaviors and feelings and thoughts. So when we think about the behavior of why people exercise and why people do not, we need to start with this word self-efficacy. And self-efficacy means it's the belief in one's capabilities to successfully carry out a course of action. So how much you believe in yourself to be able to kind of make a plan and then follow through with that plan. When they looked at people in the research and looked at who were the people who were exercising, who were the people that not, surprisingly, they found out that the stage of PD, meaning how far along you were in the course of your disease, or the degree of how much disability you had, was not the biggest factor that actually influenced exercise consistency. And you would probably think that that would be opposite, meaning that people who are a little more disabled or people who are in the later stages of their exercise, or I'm sorry, of their Parkinson's, might not be the people who want to exercise as much and who actually do, but they found that wasn't the cause. They found that self-efficacy was actually the most strongly associated factor with whether people who were living in the community with Parkinson's were actually regularly exercising. So they showed that those individuals who had high self-efficacy were actually twice as likely to exercise regularly. So having the ability to believe in oneself, that you can, again, get out there, exercise, continue the exercise, and that you'll be able to reach your goals and that things will improve for you, that is the point that they found of why people were more apt to regularly do their home programs. And again, when they looked at the people who were having difficulty with having barriers to exercise in this study, they looked at what was stopping people from this. And one of the first one was the low outcome expectation, meaning that the people who weren't exercising really believed that there wasn't a benefit to exercising. They didn't think that the exercise was actually going to do them any good. The other thing was a lack of time. And we all know how precious time is in today's world. Many of us are still working, taking care of children, grandchildren, taking care of perhaps our elderly parents. There's just so many things in life that get in the way of being able to exercise. The other thing was fear of falling, and that's very understandable. If you have a balance problem or you've already started to have falls, it can be kind of scary to think about doing these exercises. But what we really have to get across as physical and occupational therapy professionals is that we must teach you that you need to believe that exercise and activity will really make this positive impact on your lives and your function. And not only do we need to help you understand this, but we need to help you understand the why of exercise. Why are we exercising? So when we look at that first perceived barrier and we say, well, people aren't understanding that exercise actually has a benefit, we need to be doing a better job of educating you as to why specifically these type of exercises are going to be very beneficial for people with Parkinson's disease. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So this is a snapshot of the overall LSVT BIG treatment session. So if you're not familiar with the LSVT BIG program, this is what it entails. It starts with a series of 7 exercises, which we call the maximal daily exercises. Now, what's really nice about these exercises is they can be in any kind of position. So depending on what your level of activity is, we can adapt these exercises. They can be performed in sitting, they can be performed in standing, they can be performed in bed, or they can be performed in a combination of all of them. The exercises are really aimed at helping you to understand how much more amplitude or bigness you can put into your movements every day, and how, when you feel more comfortable with doing those exercises, it'll lead to you feeling more comfortable in doing your everyday functional activities in a bigger and better way. So that leads us to the next point there, what we call functional component tasks. And these are 5 everyday tasks, things that you're already doing, it's nothing new, and we ask you to do those 5 times each. One of those is always going to be sit to stand, because we know everybody has to have that ability to be able to get up off a chair or be able to transfer from a wheelchair to a toilet. So that's one thing that we hope for everyone to be able to do. And then we help you to choose 4 others, and we've listed just 2 here. Being able to pull keys out of a pocket, or maybe the ability to open up a flip phone or a cell phone. I personally think that one of the ones that I like to use with a lot of my ladies is actually finding things at the bottom of your purse, because if you're like me, things fall down to the bottom and I'm always searching through trying to find them. So we try to find things that you're already doing and things that you either don't want to lose the ability to do, or things you've already started to have trouble with and you want to get better at them. Then we move into what we're called our hierarchy tasks. And the hierarchy tasks, again, are identified by you, the person with Parkinson's. We help you to kind of figure out, well, what am I having the most difficulty with my big movements? Perhaps it's getting in and out of bed. Maybe it's getting in and out of a car. Maybe you'd like to be able to return to playing 9 holes of golf again. Maybe you're starting to see that your game is changing and you want to just stay ahead of it. So these are big, multi-leveled, more complex tasks that we work with you. And we start out more simple, and then we build that complexity across those 4 weeks so that we can really help you to make that long-term goal. So we help you to get that function back. And then the last thing we work on is, of course, big walking. So whether you're walking without an device, maybe you're using a cane, maybe you're using a rollator, even if you're someone who is in a motorized scooter or a wheelchair, we still have ways of making that movement quality improve for you. So that's basically what the overall program looks like. Of course, it will be different for everyone in the number of repetitions that you're doing and how long you hold the exercises and how easy or how challenging we make it. But over the long run, we're trying to get people to work as hard as they can and to push themselves to a higher level than they probably thought possible. So like I mentioned before, those daily exercises are really your links to function. Our goal is not that you get these exercises, you do them, and you just kind of go through the motions. Our goal is that you understand that the effort and the bigness that you put into these exercises does so many things for you. It helps with strength, it helps with balance, it helps with range of motion, it helps with feeling better from a cardiovascular standpoint because you're getting the heart rate up. And all of those things together add into your ability to function at a higher level. Because if you're someone who perhaps is really having difficulty starting to pick up their feet, and maybe you're getting stuck in small areas or where you're going through doorways, when we think about one of our exercises where we take a really big step forward, we can say, you know, remember, Mrs. Smith, when we did that exercise where you took that big step forward, that's the same thing that I need you to do when we get to that doorway. Instead of getting stuck, let's think about how we took the big step with our exercise, and therefore we can take that big step through the doorway. So again, they really do link you to better functional ability. They really are, like I said, the tools that facilitate improved movements. And the better you can move and the freer you can move, that's only going to improve your function. What we've shown you here on the left side of your screen, our model Jenny, who is also one of our faculty members, she's doing an exercise called the rock and reach. And what she's doing is she's rocking her weight front to back on her feet while she's swinging her arms back and forth. And you can think about how that could really be helpful if, in like the picture on the right, you're someone who wants to get outside, you want to walk, you want to have the ability to still walk your dog or walk with your friends, or even just walking around the house. This kind of exercise is something that we would kind of use as that stepping stone to really help you to improve your walking. Calibration, long word, but I'm going to explain it to you and explain why it really is at the heart of the matter of everything that we're doing with LSVT BIG and the full program. So what do we mean when we say the word calibration? And I'm going to read this to you and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. It means that the person with Parkinson's disease first knows and then accepts that the amount of effort needed to consistently produce bigger and more normal amplitude movements. So at first, you may not be aware that you're not swinging your arm, or that you're shuffling a little more, or that you're not picking up your foot, and that's why you're kind of having that tripping feeling. So a lot of times we need to teach people about that smallness of movement that they're having. So once the person knows, you know what, my movement is smaller, I'm not swinging my arm, I'm not taking as big of a step. And then we come along as a therapist and we teach you that the way that you can get more normal amplitude movements so that you can move more safely is that you need to produce bigger effort. So it feels weird at first because it feels like you're working really, really crazy big and you're moving with so much effort, and that you probably look like you're moving in a crazy way. But in the truth, that effort that you need to produce that normal everyday movement really will show you normal movement. So there is a relationship for you between the increased movement effort, so how much effort you put into, whether it's talking louder or moving bigger, with that output is established. So no longer do you think, wow, when I walk this big, I look like I'm walking ridiculously big and this isn't normal. You're able to say to yourself, wow, I feel the effort that I'm doing and I'm moving bigger, but it's actually getting me to have a really nice, normal look of my walk. And the impact of calibration is that we want you, the person with Parkinson's disease, to start using your movements habitually or more automatically, or it becomes more of the norm for you. So that you start using these movements more in your daily functional tasks, and that you're able to maintain these bigger movements. So you may think that you are moving like a lion. So we're looking at this little kitten look into the mirror and seeing himself like this giant lion. So it may feel like you have these crazy, big, powerful movements like a lion, and that's what you're showing the world, but you're actually showing the world what normal movement should look like. So helping you to understand that increased effort will give you normal output is really important in what we do with LSVT BIG. And then we need you to continue that once you go on and you're done therapy and you continue with your home program. So we know that over time, our drive and how calibrated we can be once we leave LSVT BIG and we leave our therapist can really diminish for many different reasons. So a lot of people, just because they're no longer regularly attending therapy, they sort of lose their motivation for that, or no longer having the therapist there sort of as a reminder or as a way to kind of motivate us. It may be disease progression. Things happen, the disease moves on. And it may be now that you're starting to have difficulties with changes in your balance and fall. So maybe you've suffered a fall and that really kind of set you back. And other medical complications. People get the flu, people can have all sorts of things happen from other ailments that they have, maybe from high blood pressure, maybe from diabetes. And there's other reasons why people could get sick and maybe be placed in the hospital and kind of lose track and lose where they were functionally. And then the feeling of, I'm doing well, I don't need to do this anymore. So, you know, I did great, I was in therapy, I'm moving fine, I don't need to keep up with my home program because I'm doing well. And then all of those things kind of together really go to that lack of motivation. And when we find that people lose that lack of motivation, that's when we're really starting to lose you know, their excitement about what they're doing. And we don't want that to happen. So Beth and I are going to continue to talk to you through the rest of this webinar about, you know, how can you stay motivated and how can you overcome some of these reasons for these barriers. And the barriers to movement in people with Parkinson's disease, we know are two main ones. Bradykinesia, which means the slowness of movement, and you probably understand that with how slow your movements can be, how much longer it may take you to get dressed, or how long it takes you to walk from point A to point B, as well as hypokinesia, which means smallness of movement. And we're talking about the smallness with how many steps you take, that lack of arm swing, you know, maybe not even smiling as broadly as you once did or talking as loudly as you did. And there's reasons why this is a barrier, especially for people in PD, and for the one standpoint of sensory feedback. And that means that people with Parkinson's don't necessarily perceive automatically that their movement is too small, and that when we get you to make those normal movements, you think something's going on, this is too big, this just doesn't feel normal. So that sensory motor mismatch, meaning that you're not feeling exactly how you're moving. The other thing is the internal cueing, and we know that, again, automatically people with Parkinson's don't self-cue themselves to use bigger movements. If that were the case, no one would need therapy, people wouldn't be falling, and everyone would be doing well. And then the third one here are the neuropsychological deficits. We know that individuals with Parkinson's disease over time start to have more difficulty with kind of holding their attention, the ability to do more than one thing at a time, and their ability to shift their attention from one thing to another. And again, if you are starting to become more fearful of falling because of falls, or perhaps even you had a friend who had a serious fall and that's caused some fear in you, as well as issues with anxiety. And remember that anxiety can go hand in hand with Parkinson's. So we have to remember that it takes intensive effort to override that bradykinesia and hypokinesia. It's like standing in wet cement that is beginning to harden. And we have to work so hard to be able to pull those feet up out of that Parkinson's cement. So now this is what the LSVT Big Home program looks like. So again, if you're not familiar, we talked before about what the full treatment program looks like, but this is what we send you home with at the end. So you're going to continue to do those 7 maximal daily exercises. We're going to ask you to continue with those functional components because they're quick, relatively on the easier side, and they're going to be things that you're already doing every day. Of course, we're going to ask you to continue to put that effort into mobility with walking, but then we're also asking you to make sure that you're functioning in a big way so that you don't go back to small ways of opening the door, small ways of opening the refrigerator, making small turns, getting in and out of the car in a small way. We want you to keep that bigness throughout everyday activities. But then we also ask you to stay active in a big way. So we want you to get out there. We want you to be in your local book club. We want you to be able to go to your house of worship. We want you to continue your job. We want you to be able to continue to volunteer. Whatever way it is that you want to stay active, we want you to be able to do that. So we're going to push you to really keep your activity up in a big way as well. Now, we know when we were in school, no one likes homework, no one wants to do homework, but there really are good reasons why people are assigned homework. And in particular for LSVT Big, the homework is designed to really help you be more comfortable with the use of those big movement effort. Like I said, it's really strange in the beginning to feel like you have to work that hard, that big, just to get a normal quality of movement. So again, we want to make you comfortable with the use of that big movement. We want you to be safe with that. And we want really to be able to help you keep your routine. So we don't want you to leave therapy and then just stop doing everything. And I kind of link it back to medications. You're taking your Parkinson medication just like you do every single day. When therapy is over, you don't decide to just stop taking your medication. And we really need to move to looking at exercise and activity just like we do to our medications. So if you're taking those medications every day, we absolutely must take our exercises every day. And then remember, it really has been shown in the research to show that we really can have an effect on slowing down the decline in your function, that people who are much more active tend to do much better in the long run. So you're comfortable with what you're doing, you've established your routine, and we're keeping you going as long as possible because exercise really is medicine. And again, it's going to boost your confidence. So your confidence will increase the more you stay active and exercise, because you're going to say things to yourself like, you know what, I can move better. I can move faster. I can move safer. I feel better about myself. I can do more things than I used to do, things I used to be afraid to do before. And now my spouse or my care partner doesn't have to help me as much. I can really do things with much less help. So when you start to feel much more confident, you're going to be much more active. And by increasing that activity, again, we're helping to slow the motor progression, right? We're helping to slow down the progression of the disease and really decreasing your risk of fall. So lots of positivity in staying confident and staying active. So this picture here was actually a picture that a gentleman who had attended one of our LSVT Big patient sessions had drawn us saying, you know what? After I do this program and do these exercises, this is how I feel. I feel big, I feel happy, I'm swinging my arms, I'm taking big steps. But the only way that you're going to stay big is by keeping it big. So if you keep it big, okay, and you keep doing that home program, you keep functioning in a big way, then you've walked through that door after you leave therapy where we've retrained your sensory calibration, you've learned how to cue yourself, you understand that you need to give big effort and big movements, and then you go home and you keep it big. So remember, keeping it big is going to help to keep you big. And at this point, I'm going to turn over the second half of the webinar to Dr. Marcoux.
Great, Heather. Thanks so much for all that great information. So once you've gone through LSVT BIG and you've completed your program, many people look for something that can keep them going. And Big for Life is that opportunity. So Big for Life is an online training course for LSVT BIG certified clinicians. So your clinician who trained you one-on-one in LSVT BIG may be able to provide you with a group activity to keep you motivated. LSVT BIG for Life, it provides therapists with the tools and the knowledge that they need in order to start and run post-discharge BIG for Life exercise classes in their communities. And these classes are intended for people who have already completed the LSVT BIG treatment. So the first step is the one-on-one, and the second is the group. And Big for Life provides you with wonderful opportunities to help maintain your motivation to do things. Being with a group is always helpful to keep you going. It allows you to try new things safely in a safe and confined environment. It helps you to continue to challenge yourself so that your exercises don't become boring. It's a great way to meet new people and to maintain some new contacts. It's really important in that it gets you up and out of the house, which sometimes is really hard for all of us, especially if you live in a wintry, snowy climate. It helps you stay socially connected, and above all, it's really fun, and exercise is much more fun if you do it in a group. Next slide. So these are just some photos of people who are doing exercises in groups. LSVT BIG starts with two seated exercises, which you might see here, and then your therapist will always add challenges to make it a little more difficult, as you can see the rope pulling in the bottom right. Next slide. So how do you find a Big for Life class? Well, the first thing you do is go on to lsvtglobal.com. That's the website for LSVT. Click on the link for Find a Clinician. And then you can click on the next link for Find an LSVT BIG Clinician. You type in your zip code and your state, and then you choose the difference. There's a sliding bar at the bottom. You can go 10 to 100 miles, and you choose the distance that you'd like to find the class within. And from there, you'll see a list of clinicians who are in your area who are certified to provide LSVT BIG. And then you can call or email them to ask if they offer a class. It's just a great way to continue to be active in what you've already learned through your individual sessions. So if you can't find an LSVT BIG class, or Big for Life class, or you're not in an area where they have them, what are some ways that you can stay motivated? Recently, NBC News provided 6 science-based secrets to staying motivated to help us all keep motivated to exercise. The first one is that your hard and fast rules were made to be broken. So oftentimes, particularly around this time of year, we make New Year's resolutions and we say, I'm going to start exercising on Monday. I'm going to exercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 30 minutes each. And then when we fail to do that, we feel upset with ourselves and feel like we failed and we don't follow through. So just remember that any of those rules you make, they're made to be broken. So it's better if you just don't do this to yourself. Don't set those hard and fast rules. Just allow yourself to begin exercising and to be grateful for any little part that you get to. A little friendly competition can light a fire. So find someone that you can compete with if you're in an exercise class. Maybe see if you can if you're walking on a treadmill with somebody, if you can walk just a little bit longer than they do. Even if you're not a competitive person, just adding a little bit of that into it makes it more, gives you more motivation to keep going. This is a great one for me. Find a friend who won't let you off the hook. If you have someone that you're going to walk with in your neighborhood or someone you're going to go to an exercise class with, the fear of letting somebody else down often keeps us going when we might have taken a break or not gone to a class. So find a friend who won't let you off the hook. stop making excuses about how you look. So a lot of times we tend to tie exercise with how we look, and really exercise is totally beneficial in its by itself, and shouldn't really impact how you look, but it's how you feel and what it does to your body and how much better it is for you physiologically when you exercise. The fifth recommendation they have is to double tap or tag your friends on social media to boost your fitness game. And this one is really great because you can use social media to hold yourself accountable and to help yourself stay on track and support one another. I know I have a Fitbit, and I have friends on my Fitbit page, and we see who walks the most in most steps in a week. Things like that. There are lots of apps that you can use that will help you to connect with others who are exercising as well. And when you support each other and when you get support from them, it helps you to stay motivated. The sixth one is make a bet on exercise and you'll win twice. This is a discussion about apps that you can put on your phone where there's actually a financial incentive to exercise. So you hook up this app to your bank account, and if you fail to exercise on a day when you said you were going to, a certain amount of money is withdrawn. On the positive side, if you exercise and meet your goals, then you get all that money back, plus you get a little bit of an incentive. So there are tons of things and ways that you can do in terms of technology, as well as just calling a friend and seeing if you can sign up for a class together. So those are 6 great suggestions. Gammon Earhart also had some practical implications for integrating exercise into your everyday life. The first one is expecting more from exercise. And I think Heather hit that on the nail on the head in the beginning when she talked about the fact that a lot of us think exercise doesn't have any benefit, when in reality, exercise is extremely important for everybody, not just for athletes or whatever, but exercise makes a huge difference physiologically in all parts of your life. It helps with depression. It helps with your physiology. It helps with your cardiovascular health. You just can't say enough about the good things that it does. She also kind of hit on it when it said, believe in yourself. And that's your self-efficacy. You have to believe in your ability to get better and to improve the quality of your life. I think the third one is probably one of the more important ones. Seek professional input to get started. So if you're new to Parkinson's disease and find that there are lots of programs out there, dance for Parkinson's and Tai Chi for Parkinson's, those are all wonderful activities to participate in, but it's really important to get professional input first. And so because physical therapists and occupational therapists have knowledge about exercise that people who are running other classes may not have. And so it's important to get that professional input first. So, for example, starting with LSVT BIG would be great, and then taking on the dance classes and the Tai Chi. Put exercise on your calendar and set reminders for yourself. Make it just as important as you would a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment. Make it something that you can't miss. So if it's on your calendar and you can't schedule things over it, you're more likely to do it. Break it up into smaller chunks to fit it in. If your goal is to exercise 30 minutes a day and you can't find 30 minutes, try doing 10 minutes and a break from your computer at work, or 10 minutes at lunchtime, or 10 minutes before dinner. One of the things I used to do with my husband is to walk on the treadmill while we watch the evening news. Just finding enough time to fit it in is really important. And again, exercising with a partner, or better yet, with a group. I know that personally, I exercise much harder if I'm with a group rather than just trying to do it on my own. So it's always much more fun, and I think you get more out of it if you're with a partner or with a group. And remember, again, technology is your friend. There's tons of apps and Apple Watches and Fitbits and pedometers, all kinds of things that can help you to keep track of how well you're doing. But one of the most important things is to make it fun. Find something that you enjoy doing so that you'll keep doing it and return to doing it. This is one, again, this is an LSVT BIG session. It's an example of the maximum daily exercises that we have our clients do. These are important exercises because they are all the foundations to movement. And so if you get these exercises down and continue to do these, they will help to prepare you to function in all aspects of life. Remember, Heather said that they shouldn't ever be easy. They shouldn't ever be boring. So this next slide is a video of the rock and reach exercise that you see Jenny doing. So you'll just play the video for you.
Posture. big step forward and nice and big and wide. Now you're going to begin to rock forward and backwards with a big rocking motion as you go. Now let's begin to add your arms. So big reach, big rock, big reach, big rock. Now we're going to switch your feet and we'll do the exercise again. So put your other foot forward, big step, nice and wide, and we're going to begin to rock back and forth big. Add your arms, get your movement going, and we'll start the count now.
So that was just an example of the big, one of the ones that we do, the forward rock and reach. And again, we showed you in the beginning, linking it to function, is that it's great for walking. It's also great for patients who are reaching up forward into a cabinet to get something and rocking back and shifting their weight. Again, it should never be very easy. So if you're someone who's in the early stages of Parkinson's, there are ways to make these exercises more challenging. And this next video is one of Heather's patients. You can see how they've made this same exercise more challenging.
Now big posture, big head looking up. That's it. Now think about those heels. Which one's big? Woo!
So you can see from the video that it was made more challenging by putting the person on foam blocks to make it that much more challenging for him, to keep his balance at a level where he's going to be able to walk on uneven surfaces and throughout rough terrain. Next slide. So progressing intensity and keeping it challenging is really important. And so for patients, make sure your therapists are making sure that you're challenged. And for therapists who might be listening, it's really important to move forward from those basic exercises that you were shown and make them more challenging for your patients who can safely do them in a more challenging way. So ways you can do that are by increasing the repetitions and the times that you hold on the exercises that include a hold. Having your patients count loudly using their normal big voice, adding resistance, for example, putting weights on ankles or on wrists, adding flicks. Those were those hand motions that that you learned in class. Another great thing to do is to combine motor and cognitive dual tasks. So if you're asking your patient to, while they're doing that forward rock and reach, to recite the states in the Northeast, or to name things that they would find in a garage, but you're adding a cognitive task to it the whole time that they're doing this motor activity. So they're learning to multitask again, which we do every day in real life. Add distractions, particularly if you're in a clinic situation. You can put them in a room that's very loud with lots of other people. You can add music. There's lots of ways to add distractions and to make them have to think and be more attentive to what they're doing. But remember to always keep it big. What you will see when you begin to add those cognitive tasks is that their movements get smaller, but that's when you need to remind them to keep it big and to always keep it big. LSVT big treatment sessions should never be easy or boring. They should always be big. And your therapist needs to be creative to maximally challenge you in order to drive neuroplasticity. So if you feel like you're doing the same exercises over and over, you need to let your therapist know that it needs to be more challenging for you. And we need that challenge in order to drive that neuroplasticity and maintain that function that you've got. Next slide. So as the patient, need to always think big. It's a 24/7 responsibility. If you learned what it feels like to move normally, you have to have that level of effort in absolutely everything that you do, whether it's in your home or out in the community. You need to keep in your mind, think big, think big, think big in all your movements. Heather talked about functional component tasks. So the very first part of the program is those 7 maximum daily exercises, and that's always followed by 5 functional component tasks. And these are 5 simple movements that we are chosen between you and your therapist. You're asked to repeat them 5 times every day. And the first one is always sit to stand, because people sit to stand at least 100 times a day, and that's one of those skills that you never want to lose. The other 4 are chosen by you and your therapist, and they're personalized to the individual. So it's what things are important to the person. And again, they are simple one-step commands. Heather used the example of reaching into a purse for a female at the bottom of their purse. I had a patient who wanted to get their own cognac at night, so they would learn to reach up high off the shelf to be able to pour their own glass of cognac. So those are things that are personalized to individuals, and they are simple one-component task movements that are overlearned, familiar, commonly used, and important everyday movements that bring amplitude rescaling into everyday living. So these are things that you don't want to lose the ability to do, or things that you find you're beginning to have some difficulty with. At the bottom of the slide, you can see there are 2 examples. One is for a 44-year-old female. Again, she's trying to find something to pull out an item out of her purse. Signing a check or writing a signature is an important task. Reaching for a seatbelt is a really hard one for a lot of patients. Hooking your bra and turning it around to get it on right. Those might be the 4 additional functional component tasks, in addition to sit to stand, that the 44-year-old female would do. For a 65-year-old male, sit to stand is the first one that he'll do. A second one might be pulling his wallet out of a back pocket, removing a backpack, using a swipe card on a bus, or pulling a chair out from a desk or a table for the multiple times that you sit down during the day. Next slide. And walking big is always part of every homework session and part of every session in LSVT Big. And you need to walk big, not just in the hallways of your home, but wherever you go. So walking big involves not just walking straight. It might involve turns or stops and starts, changing direction, backing up, as you would if you're backing up out of a closet after you've reached in and gotten something off a shelf, backing away from the trunk of your car, climbing steps, stepping over objects, turning your head to look in different directions while you're still walking, walking in stores and restaurants, crossing streets. So big walking is very involved, and it's not just walking up and down the hallways in your own home. Next slide. So when is it you've had LSVT Big? You've completed the 16 visits with your therapist. And so when is it time for a tune-up? Well, if you can answer yes to any one of these questions, it's time for a tune-up. So are you experiencing more falls or almost falls? Are you having more difficulty getting out of a chair or a bed or in and out of the car? Has your walking changed? Are you shuffling your feet more? Is your arm swing decreased a bit? Are you tending to freezing more or having more occasions of tripping? Have you recently been ill or hospitalized? Has it been 6 months to a year since you've last seen your therapist? Again, if you can answer yes to any of those questions, then it's time for you to see your therapist for a tune-up. Next slide. So what's the elephant in the room? Well, the elephant in the room is the Medicare therapy cap. And we know that this cap has been a pain for years, and we had hoped that by the January 1st that Congress would have put a permanent repeal on it, but that didn't happen. And so currently there are no KX modifier exceptions, which would allow your therapist to write letters for you to increase that cap. So currently the cap for PT and speech combined is $2,010. And for OT on its own is $2,010. Before you panic, there's lots that's being done. Massive efforts are underway by the APTA, which is the American Physical Therapy Association, the American Occupational Therapy Association, and the American Speech and Hearing Association, and other national organizations to try to extend that Medicare therapy cap exception process, or to institute a permanent Medicare therapy cap repeal. Again, Congress now has a chance until the end of, I believe it's the end of January, to get that repeal into place. If you're a person who needs both LSVT Loud, which is to improve your vocal loudness, and LSVT BIG, which is for your motor function. The option of having LSVT BIG delivered by an OT is a good alternative because remember, OT is separated in the caps. They have $2,000 of their own that they can spend. Or you can use a PT-OT split to deliver LSVT BIG, where you would see a PT for 2 of the sessions and an OT for the other 2 sessions each week. These are all good options that would help to get you to function better. But the other thing that you can do, and we would all really appreciate it, is if you would email or call your elected representatives in the House and the Senate and encourage them, your friends and family, and if you're a therapist, your patients, to do the same, to get them to put the permanent Medicare therapy cap repeal in place. And it takes just a few minutes to call your representative, and we hope that and many of you will do it. There are tons of learning opportunities for therapists who are interested in LSVT BIG. You can ask the expert questions at info@lsvtglobal.com. We have a number of public webinars like the one that you just have listened to. They can be found on demand and through live options. There's a YouTube channel you can go to get them, and there are several wonderful ones out there. We have an LSVT BIG Homework Helper DVD that you can purchase through LSVT Global or through Amazon.com. It's a great way for patients to have a reminder while they're working at home trying to get their homework in order. LSVT BIG Homework Helper Volume 2 shows all the adapted exercises where the same exercises can be done in seating, in supine, or in standing, and that DVD is also available through LSVT Global. There are LSVT lectures in Texas, in Hawaii, in Jacksonville, Lansing, Michigan, West Orange, New Jersey, all of them coming up, and you can find out more details about them on the lsvtglobal.com website. Heather, I'm going to turn it over back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Beth. So much wonderful information. I wanted to let you know about some upcoming learning opportunities. So for professionals who are out there in our audience, so PT and OT professionals, we are going to have a webinar entitled like this one, Keep It Big, Tune-Ups and Other Post-Discharge Recommendations in LSVT BIG. So ways that you can continue to motivate your patients and keep them going. That will be in February. Another office hours, and office hours are an opportunity for professionals to really kind of start an open dialogue and have a great question and answer session where we, the LSVT BIG faculty, will present maybe just a couple of slides to kind of get some thoughts going out there. And what we want to do is talk to you more about resources, what resources are out there for LSVT BIG certified clinicians, what you need to know, and what we can do to further help you. So what are you looking for from us as an organization as well? And then lastly, for our public office hours out there for people with Parkinson's, therapists who are not certified in LSVT BIG, we're going to be presenting small movements in LSVT BIG. Can BIG help with small? And that's going to be a really interesting office hour because that is something that a lot of people don't think that they can improve. I really have small, fine handwriting. I can't do this anymore. I can't type on my computer anymore. I really can't put my jewelry on. I can't get money out of my wallet. So we'll be presenting ideas and opportunities for how using LSVT BIG can really help you even with those very small movements. So now what I'd like to do is take some time and give you the opportunity to go ahead and ask us some questions. So how to ask your questions right now live. If you look into the control panel right there on your screen, you can see the question box. Go ahead and type any of your questions into that box. I'll read them out loud and Beth and I will answer them for you. The other way is to raise your hand. So you're going to click on that hand icon that you see on your control panel. I'll call your name, I'll unmute your mic, and then I'll ask you to ask your question out loud. If you think of a question after we've ended this session, or there's something you privately want to ask us, you can feel free to email us at any time at info@lsvtglobal.com. We always have someone available in our Ask the Expert series, so someone is always available to be able to help you with your question. So I'm going to take this first question that has come in here, Beth. It says, can I join the Big for Life class if I haven't done LSVT BIG? And that is a fantastic question, because I know Beth talked about what a great class it is. And unfortunately, the answer is no. In order to be able to participate in a Big for Life class, you actually have to have gone through the LSVT BIG program with a physical or occupational therapist. And the reason that is because it's a very specific program, and you're going to want to already know the exercises, and we're going to want to know about functional components and the amount of effort and the term calibration that we talked about before. These are things that you need to be already aware of. So what I would suggest you do is go back to that slide where Beth talked about how to find a class, but that also is the same slide for how to find a clinician in your area. So get yourself in touch with a therapist who's certified in LSVT BIG, go through the program, and then hopefully you'll be able to find that LSVT BIG for Life class in your community that'll really help to keep you going. This next question, Beth, if you want to take this, it says, can I do other exercises along with my LSVT BIG home exercise program, or am I limited to just doing that?
Great question, and one that a lot of the patients will ask when they're finished. The answer is absolutely. We recommend that patients stay as active as they possibly can. So doing your LSVT BIG homework is important and vital, and you must keep it up for the rest of your life. But also being as active as you can by participating in other exercises is great as well. I can give you an example of a therapist who had a patient who was in early stages of Parkinson's, did LSVT BIG, got much improved in terms of function, and then began running marathons and stopped doing the LSVT exercises and noticed a decline in his function. Came back, had obviously declined based on the assessment she'd done previously, and then learned that you must keep doing those LSVT BIG exercises, because remember, they serve as the foundation for all activities that you want to be able to do. They're going to help you to do the activities you want to do better. So yes, do lots of different activities. Make sure you just maintain the LSVT BIG homework as well.
Great, thank you, Beth. And this next question kind of dovetails into it, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about personal experience that I had. It says, why can't I just ride my stationary bike? I have read a lot about bike riding being very helpful for people with Parkinson's disease. And absolutely, yes, there is research out there that is indicating that moderate to high levels of aerobic exercise, so where it really gets your heart rate going, can be very beneficial for people with Parkinson's disease. Think of it, though, from this standpoint. Just riding the bike is not going to address your handwriting. It's not going to necessarily address how well you get in and out of bed or in and out of a car. It may not necessarily, just from being more cardiovascularly fit, necessarily make your function better. So we like to train what we call train to the deficit, meaning if you have difficulty with sit to stand, then we're going to practice sit to stand with you. If you're having difficulty getting out of the car, then we're going to practice getting out of the car with you. So while Beth said before, yes, absolutely continue with any other exercise program. It's important, though, that we keep it with the LSVT BIG. So if you've gone through the LSVT BIG program, you sure can supplement it with something else. But I would say that it really behooves people to have the LSVT BIG along with something else, because it's not just a home program for exercises. We're not looking at it like that. We're looking at it as a way to improve your function and to keep you functioning at the highest level possible for as long as possible. And I'll give you an example. We had a young woman who was, I don't even think she was 50 yet when she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, so young onset Parkinson's, and she was a marathon runner. And she really kind of put off coming to therapy for quite some time. And when we finally got her, we were really, really shocked to see the level of disability that she had. She was a right-handed woman, and her Parkinson's symptoms had started on the left side. So she was really underusing her left arm. She was letting her right arm take care of everything. She had started typing just with the right hand. She had started just brushing her hair and washing herself just with the right hand instead of doing kind of the back and forth with both hands. Simply because the fact that she was a marathon runner was fantastic for her cardiovascular system and great for her balance system, but it really didn't address her fine motor coordination or any of the difficulties she was having from a functional standpoint. So yeah, the simple answer is that you just can't ride your stationary bike. There's got to be more to it from a functional standpoint. And with that being said, Beth, the next question is, when should I start LSVT BIG?
Great question. You should start as soon as you notice any difficulty in movement, or as soon as you get the diagnosis from your physician. And actually, I think all of us should be doing these LSVT big exercises because they are the foundations and they do help you to maintain your ability to function in all ways. So the answer to that is simply as soon as you possibly can, and keep it up for as long as you can. One of the keys is to life, and as you get older, is just to keep moving. And so you can't start LSVT big too early.
Great, thank you, Beth. This next question I'll take here, it says, does the Medicare cap just impact people with Parkinson's? An excellent question. It doesn't impact just people with Parkinson's. This Medicare cap impacts anyone who has Medicare and needs therapy services. So if you're attending this webinar today and you have friends at your church, you need to let those friends know at church about Medicare, what's going on with that, and ask them to call their representatives. Anyone in your family, anyone in your social circle, anyone at work, anyone who has Medicare right now is impacted by that cap. So we're really calling for all people, and you don't even have to be someone who has Medicare. I have called and emailed my congressman several times, and I'm going to continue to do so because it's only through our voices and our challenge that we're going to really kind of bring their attention and awareness to this. So yes, everyone with Medicare is impacted. This next question, Beth, if my insurance, if I have problems, I'm kind of reading this, I'm not sure it's a very long question. It seems to be that if I have some difficulties with my insurance not covering this, are there other opportunities? What can I do to help to get LSVT big?
I would certainly talk to my therapist and see if they or their facility might have some funds available to help others look for other ways to find money to cover it. There are some therapists that may do it pro bono. I think you would just have to keep trying. I would try back with your insurance. There are 11 of us that are part of the LSVT Big Faculty, and none of us have had difficulty getting it paid for. So I think one of the things you should do is talk to your therapist about writing a letter, a more impactful letter to the insurance company to get them to cover it. And Heather, you may have additional thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I've even had patients who have talked to their local Kiwanis Club or Rotary Club, things like that, if they really have difficulties. I know with our health system, if you don't have health insurance or we don't take it, there is something called charity care that can be looked into. So I think Beth's right. You want to start with your therapist first and ask what's available through the hospital and see if they can kind of help to direct you. Looks like we've got time for one more here, and this looks like it's kind of more of a statement than it is a question. This person is saying that one of the things that I find that helps to motivate me a lot is music. What are your thoughts on using music with LSVT Big? I am a very, very big proponent of using music. I think music is a great motivation tool. Music can be used in so many different ways, not only to just motivate us, but it can also help to relax us if we're feeling anxious. So absolutely, if you're going through your LSVT Big exercises and you want to put on some great music in the background and you want to sing along with that music, absolutely. The thing that I would caution people about is if you're using the music and you become too distracted by the music and then you're kind of doing your exercises sloppily and you're not keeping that big effort or that big movement, then you might want to go to something a little less distracting for you. But absolutely, I think a lot of people will walk to music. They use the beat of the music and they use that drive to really help keep them going and to keep them motivated. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone so much for staying with us through this question and answer session. Like I said, if you come up with any further questions or you have thoughts or things you just want to share with us as an organization, things you would like to learn more about, please feel free to get in touch with us at info@lsvtglobal.com. We'd love to hear from you. And again, remember the future learning opportunities that we have for both therapists as well as individuals with Parkinson's. So I'd like to thank my co-presenter today, Dr. Beth Marcoux, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.